Now, before the film, that is after it, or to put it another way, during it, let us hear a few words about the awful.
I was bored on the 9th of October 1940 when I believe the Nazis were still booming us, led by Adolf Hitler, who only had one. Anyway, they didn't get me. I attended Tabarika schools in Liverpool and still didn't pass, much to my auntie's surprise. As a member of the most publified Beatles, my and PG&R's record might seem funnier to some of you than this book. But as far as I'm conceived, this correction of Short Richie is the best laugh I've ever read. God help and breed you all.
As you can see, diction is very important. And the awful has several interesting, or conversely uninteresting, hints to offer. All aboard speeching. Speak you clear and nasal for distance.
Ron cordially begs to inform, ma'am, all is forgiven.
Now, many people express great height with the word
Ma'am. Sing you with long voice. For discharge?
Deep breathing is Nescafe for a dark voice. Deep breathing and inhaling is very important for broadcastle and outlying aerials. Visibility nil in Rockall and Fred Astaire. Practice daily, but not if you're Devon Duff. For example, the word phonetically wrote must be charged grammatically with vowel pronounced strangly. E.g.
Well, talking on you, my Ivans are getting cold, and you know as well as I do that we must strive the Ivan while it is hot.
Regard the Oxfam, they speak
Avon.
But in Cambridge,
Oivan.
The vowel thus stressed pronounced
Hello.
Practice, Davy, but not if you're mutton Jeff. And now, another poem, Good Dog Nigel.
Half he goes, a merry sight, our little hairy friend. Half upon the lamppost bright.
Half in round a bend. Nice dog, good boy, waggy tail and beg. Clever Nigel, jump for joy.
Because we're putting you to sleep at 3 o'clock, Nigel.
Thank you for that performance, Nigel. And now, unhappy Frank. Unhappy Frank. Frank looked at the table, hardly daring to look at the table.
I hate that table.
He said.
Bloody old table in my house.
Then he looked at the clock.
Damn that clock in my house.
Said Frank, for it was his house, you know. After a little bit, his eye came across his very mother's chair.
Don't like that chair one bit.
He showbody.
Just look at all that garbage, all filthy and derby. How am I supposed to look after all this garby rubbish? What am I but a slave to look upon, with Dissica Freebits, all the peagle laughing and buzzing me in front of all the world? How can I but carry on? How? Have I but no life of my own, to do but what I must ever jug gleaning and looking after these damn old house of my own?
Frank went over to his dub-old mother, whom was stickle living with him.
What are you laughing at, you dub-old boot? Haven't I enough trouble without you catting in the corber?
With that, Frank stubbed up and kicked her plainly in the head.
Take that for laughing, you bud old griff. I hate that boot.
He said, smiling quirkily to themselves.
I'm going to sell this daft shed, and you two as well also, Mummy.
So he sold it all and left the country, and settled down in another country, which he did not like half as much as his dear old home in England, with his dear old, quaint, old lovely mother, what he,
Frank,
thank you, lost due to a bad harvest, which just goes to show what happens. Finally, the awful himself with the wrestling dog.
The wrestling dog. Once upon a time, in a far-off distant land, far across the sea, miles away from anyway, over the hills as the crow barked, 39 people lived miles away from anywhere, on a little island on a distant land. When harvest time came along, all the people celebrated with a mighty feast and dancing and that. It was Perry's.
for Perry was the loud mare.
Job to provide.
And Perry's great pleasure, I might add.
And new and exciting.
And usually it was.
Thrill and spectacular performer.
Sometimes a dwarf was used.
This year, Perry had surpassed himself by getting a wrestling dog. But who would fight this wondrous beast? I wouldn't for a kick-off. Won't get me fighting it, Dudley.
Mr. John Lennon. Mr. John Lennon will be back with the answers later on in the program. Poetry and music. This uneasy marriage of the arts has caused a lot of controversy for a long time. Many opinions are for, many against. We leave you to judge for yourselves. What we're going to show you is a visualization and musification of a poem of a young poet, John Lennon. And the poem is called, quite simply, Deft Head, Danoota, and Me.
Fog, hilly grove, and burly Ive, big dales, grass and tree, wee clobber ever gallop, Deft Head, Danoota, and me. Never shall we partly stray, fast stirrup, all we three, fight the battle, mighty sword, Deft Head, Danoota, and me. With faithful frog beside us, big mighty club are we, the battle scab and frisky dyke, Deft Head, Danoota, and me. We fight the baddies for colour, race and creed, for Negro, Jew and Bernie, Deft Head, Danoota and me. For Billy Groves and Burnley 10 and Aston Villa 3, we clobber ever gallop, Danoota and me. So if you hear a wondrous sight and blutter or at sea, remember the mighty say, Deft Head, Danoota, and me.
Sometimes we bring our friend Malcolm.
Now is the time to say goodbye. Now is the time to yield a sigh. Now is the moment to wend away. Until we meet again. Goodbye, goodbye, we're leaving you. Goodbye, we went goodbye, 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 goodbye. Thank you very much, Mr. Professor Bruce Lacey. Goodbye. And of course, Mr. Norman Rossington and Sheila Steeple. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely photograph. Your friend of mine, Mr. Peter Cook. And of course, the book writing Beatle, Mr. John Lennon.